All right, second graders, we are going to do lesson 7-2. It is on equal shares, and you can see here I have 12 rectangular shapes here. What I'm going to do is we're going to start by figuring out how we can cut these squares in half, okay? How do we cut them in half? So we're going to start right up here. And maybe you can go ahead, we're on page 375, and you can think of a way to cut it in half. I'm going to go ahead and make one way, and you see if it's the same. I can cut it in half just by one line across, going down actually, not across, to make two smaller rectangles. I can also make one where we cut it in half going horizontal. And then I can also cut it in half by making a diagonal line. And finally, if I cut it the other way diagonally. I know that kind of looks the same, but it's different, isn't it? So we made two triangles by doing that, didn't we? Two triangles. Now we know that they are in half because we can actually cut that. If I could cut that and flip it over and plop it down, it would be exactly the same size. One piece would not be bigger than the other. One piece would not be smaller than the other. That goes for all four of these ways to make half. If you cut one out and put it on top of the other one, you know it is two equal shares. So pretend they're a pan of brownies. If you and a friend were sharing and you said cut them in half, you could cut them so that you each have the same equal size. We're going to skip number 2. Number 2 says to shade them in thirds. What I want to do now is I want to actually cut these shapes now into fourths. So we're going to go to number 3 right now. Number 3. All right, now how do we cut these shapes so that they are in fourths? Well, we have a little thing to think about always, that fourths are actually cutting a half in half. So how can we cut this half in half? You're right, we could just go ahead and make a line across like that. Now I'm going to start again with it in half this way. What's another way we could cut it in half? You're right, we could cut it in half like this and cut this half in half. So there's two ways to cut it in half with a vertical line going in half. Well, there's actually more, and I'm going to show you right now. Let's cut it in half again. Now we can go ahead and we can cut it in half diagonally. Half, and I could cut this one in half. Now, there are two smaller triangles. If you cut one of them out and you flip it over, you can plop them on top of each other, and you will see that they are actually all the same size. I just have to fix it a little because it was not exactly in half to begin with. When it's in half to begin with, then you can cut your halves in half. All right, we're going to go right over here. Now, we just cut it in half this way, diagonal. Could we cut it the other way? We could cut it like this, and we could cut it like this. That way we cut those halves in half, and we have 4 equal parts. These are all fourths, aren't they? 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. Together, all 4 of those fourths equal all 4 fourths, which equals a whole pan of brownies. Okay, let's cut them in half again. Half, and now instead of cutting your diagonals this way, we can cut them like a roof of a house or a tent. Those are all in halves, and see how, so they're fourths. See how they're all different, but kind of start out the same? All right, and I can think of another one. I'll do this one. Cut it in half again like this, And now instead of cutting it out like a house or a roof, we'll go upside down. And that is just the opposite of that one. Instead of coming from here going down, we cut it from here and go across. So we just cut them in fourths. All right, now we're gonna cut them in fourths again, but this time I'm gonna start off like this. So horizontal line in half. Now how do we cut it in half with diagonals? You're right, you can cut it like this and like this. Now I know I don't have a ruler, so I didn't make them exactly correct, but it's the best that I can do freehand. All right, now I'm gonna cut it in this way again. And we can also make it like this. All right. All right, so one last way that I'm thinking of is we're gonna go up here to this diagonal. I'm gonna cut it in half, but now how do we cut it in half again? You're right, we can do this. Now this one is a little different than all the rest, and the reason why is because this shape does not look exactly the same as this one, does it? This one looks wider and flatter. This one looks taller and skinnier. But the thing about this one is they are actually the same size. So even though they aren't the same shape of a triangle, they are the same size. And I want you to think about why. If I take my marker and I cut my fourths into half again, now I want you to think about this. I'm going to cut each fourth in half again. That fourth is in half. This fourth is in half. This fourth is in half. This fourth I cut in half. Now I just made eighths because there's 8 equal parts. And when you look at every single piece, now what do they look like? Yeah, they not only look like the same size, but they look like the same exact shape. You can cut one of these triangles out, pick it up and flip it over, and it will match that same one. So I'm just going to shade one of them. And you can see that when I shade that one, it looks exactly the same size as what? Yeah, this one and 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 this one. They're all the same size. So when you can cut something in half again and you see 2 equal parts and you say the other fourth had 2 equal parts too, and all 4 of these are equal in size and shape, you know that they are the same. So when I erase this now, and fill in the rest of this one, you can see that that fourth is the same as this fourth now, because remember, it's just different shape. But if you take one of those sections, put it right here in the other section and put it here, it's the same size. All right, boys and girls, these were fourths. Now the thirds are really simple, and I'm just gonna erase this one and this one so you can see thirds. Thirds are super simple. No diagonals, can't do that when you're doing thirds. All you simply do is think about how you would fold an envelope. You would make one cut here and one cut here. Super simple. 3 equal parts. How many slices did I make? I'd made 2 cuts. When you make 2 cuts, then there's 3 equal parts. Now, if you're doing this one vertically, the next one is simply horizontal. So you just do it where you think 3 equal parts looks. Now, would it be right if I did this? Are those 3 equal parts? No, they're not. So when you make your fourths and your thirds and your halves, you have to look at it with your eyes and see, is it as close as I could possibly do where I see they are measured exactly into equal parts? Yes. So there's thirds. All right, so when you're working on your own, you can go ahead and do the next page. It's cutting squares into fourths and thirds and halves. So it's basically the same thing. You're looking at cutting it in half, then cut your half in half again, only you're doing it with a square and a circle. All right, have a great day.